I want to talk about where we are right now. We are exactly 5 weeks out from Election Day. It's also a big night, the first and potentially only vice presidential debate between Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. What are you looking out for tonight?
Yeah, first of all, I can't believe we're only 5 weeks out because we talk about presidential elections 2 years in advance. And so the fact that we're right here in the home stretch is so crazy to me. I think tonight's going to be really interesting as we were getting, prepared with the shot and all of that. I think it's going to be a little bit of a dumpster fire. I'm going to be honest with you, only because, I think that we have two gentlemen who will be up on that stage who have big personalities that will probably butt heads a little bit. And I think tonight, more than anything, it's sort of going to be who do Americans like the most, personality-wise. I don't think we're going to get into very heavy policy debates. I could be wrong, but I think it's going to be who do you want to have a beer with, right? That old adage. But instead of talking about the president, we're talking about a vice presidential candidate.
So let's talk about that a little bit because it does appear in the polls that J.D. Vance has a little bit of that likability problem. And if it is a dumpster fire tonight, how does he get past that? Because polls are indicating when it comes to approval ratings between Vance and Walz, Walz is winning by double digits. So what does Vance need to do to appear more likable, to appear to be that guy who Americans of all stripes can have a beer with?
When I think of J.D. Vance, and he hasn't been in office all that long, is something that we have to remember. When I think of him, though, I think of someone who is, a strong defender of Trump and is very stern and firm with the way that he talks. That's not a bad thing. And listen, I'm not a supporter of Trump, so I'm going to have disagreements with him when it comes to those policy issues. However, that doesn't mean that you're unable to deliver it in a way that's digestible for the American people or that they can tolerate, right? And so I think what he has to do, and maybe this sounds kind of crazy, is be nice. He doesn't have to be gentle, but just he has to keep in mind the reputation that he's garnered during this campaign is not a great one. So he really, I think, has to be a little bit softer. And when we talk about presidents or vice presidents, that's not really a term that we use all that much. But when he's against Walz, who is America's dad, that he's being framed as a football coach, and he is able to come across as someone who is tough but also likable, he's got to try to tap into something like that, I think.
I think nice and modern politics is something that really we haven't seen in a while, and that would be nice to see. It would be nice to see on the national stage. But as we know, this race is neck and neck, especially in the battleground states. It's really anyone's race, and every demographic matters. As we know, women are a huge constituency, and J.D. Vance has seemed to say some comments that have riled women as a whole up. I mean, the childless cat lady's comment really is now a rallying cry of the left. How do you think he appeals to women tonight?
By not repeating that and maybe apologizing, or and there's also a thing, and maybe we've talked about this before, but there's just a problem in general in society, but also especially in politics, that people don't apologize. They just try to sweep it under the rug and hope it'll be the only a 24-hour story and then we'll move on to the next. But this is something that has sustained a little bit, and so it's obviously going to be brought up in some capacity. I think it would be smart for him to say, listen, I was being crass, I was trying to be funny, no, I don't think women who are childless and have cats do not have a place in our culture, and just chalk it up, because I'm sure he didn't mean it to be cruel. I'm sure he was trying to be funny about it, and sometimes we say things that are a little off color, and then we just have to be able to own up to it. I think that would be a big character defining moment, that he can cop up to it and say, you know what, I was wrong and I didn't mean it like that, I'm sorry. Will he do that? No, probably not. He'll probably double down, if anything, which would be the worst thing he could do.
Well, when it comes to certain issues, Trump and Vance have the lead when it comes to immigration, the economy, inflation. When it comes to abortion, however, Democrats really have that on lock. Do you think he could make any strides tonight, J.D. Vance, when it comes to abortion, when it comes to women's rights?
You know what? I really don't think so. And I say that because when we saw the presidential debate, that was a topic that was brought up. And it's specifically what JD Vance had said about Trump. And Trump, even in that moment, was like, oh, well, he and I haven't even talked about it. You know, he's not speaking for me on this issue, which is such a slap in the face to your running mate, one. But also, it just gives no confidence that, hey, you know what, they're like on the same page on these really important issues. So I mean, I guess never say never. Like potentially there's some space there, right, for people who are like, oh, this is the one issue that I care about the most, and maybe he can deliver an answer that's decent enough. But I really think they need to be pulling talking points from Nikki Haley when she was in this primary. I think she's the Republican who's been the best messenger on this issue. I think it's too little too late on this issue specifically, but women aren't single issue voters. So, you know, I'm sure economy, immigration, all those sorts of things will sway the needle as well.